When we arrived in Rishikesh, one of the first things Prabhupada wanted was to drink some water. So somebody gave him some water from the tap, and Prabhupada said, "Did I come to Rishikesh to drink tap water?" And so I just ran down to the river and got some water from the Ganges. And Prabhupada was very pleased to drink that straight from the river. And those days I was a brahmachari. I just got initiated a couple of months ago. And Prabhupada was very restful there. And we were just a handful of devotees. And one day I was cooking, and Prabhupada decided to teach us how to cook. He first asked me to cut the vegetables, and then he showed also how to cook basmati rice. And the rice was just mixed with ghee. And Prabhupada told me not to even wash the rice, and then put it on the fire. And when the rice was cooked, every single grain was separate. And Prabhupada showed how to make the chapatis. And one day was Ekadasi, and we somehow, we were not careful, and we broke the Ekadasi. We took some grain for breakfast, and then we realized that it was Ekadasi. So I went and told Prabhupada. Prabhupada's immediate reaction was, "So, what can be done? You broke it, you took the grain." But then he got very annoyed. He said, "There was the point in having a Pandit with us if you can't even tell us when is the Ekadasi." And Prabhupada said, then observe the Ekadasi the next day. Although he didn't break the fast, but Prabhupada that day also took grains with us. Like that shows his compassion for his disciples.
In Rishikesh, Prabhupada was lecturing there, every evening giving a class. Famous Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was also in Rishikesh at the time, and many of his teachers were coming to attend Prabhupada's lectures. So at that point, Maharishi sent a note to Prabhupada saying that, "Swamiji, I've heard that you are quite ill. Perhaps you should not exert yourself so much. Better not to lecture in the evenings." Because he felt worried that so many of his teachers were listening to Prabhupada. One European lady was there, a very sweet lady, and she asked Prabhupada, "It's very nice what you're preaching, but what are you doing for the suffering of the people of the world?" And you would think that Prabhupada would be very sensitive to her being an elderly European lady. Well, Prabhupada, he just exploded. He said, "What do you know about mercy? What do you understand about compassion? It is simply sentiment." He said that your idea of giving, some sort of relief to people's suffering is like blowing air on a boil. It's full of pus. The kind act you can do for such a person is to cut it. So mercy means to cut through the ignorance that persons are under. And our preaching is based on this understanding, that ignorance causes suffering, and that to enlighten people is the way to free them from ignorance.
So everything was very wonderful in Rishikesh, and Prabhupada was very restful, and we were having a wonderful time. And then all of a sudden one day there was this huge storm, and it looked so ominous. And it was not only heavy rain, but there was a storm, and the storm made some electric poles topple over at some place, and electric supply got disrupted. And it became very cold also, cold, rainy, and wind. And it was very kind of eerie, like ominous. And those days I used to attend Srila Prabhupada from 12 to 2. And it was around 1 o'clock, Prabhupada just called me. And he told me that the time has come for me to die. And I want to die in Vrindavan. So make arrangements to take me to Vrindavan. And it was such a shock, as if it was a bolt from the blue. So that night only we packed everything up, and we decided to leave the next morning.
Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajananandina Matvalikau Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghujugau Sri Deva Gopalakau Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghujugau Sri Deva Gopalakau